Strategy is the key thing that we're going to have to draw upon. And you heard in the first of this series that I'm a scholar and a warrior and a spiritual person. But my first love after the truth is strategy. That's my gift. I love it. Everything I do, I see it strategically. I don't care what it is. If I'm going somewhere, I'm looking for the shortest direction. If I'm with somebody and they want to go back to the same place, I say no, because that violates efficiency. Hell no. You're already there. You forgot something? Go there another day. I'm not doing it. You hear me? And so strategy is the key here. And of all the arts, there are only two higher, God and love. God is higher than everything. And love is such a beautiful thing. And God is, of course, unconditional love. It's hard to define. And it's almost as hard to define strategy. And by the way, in preparing for this, I decided to go just look at the New College Collegiate Dictionary, because I do not rely on their definitions, but I just wanted to see what they had to say, because I've been doing this for many years and losing no battles. So I already know what it is. I want to see what they had. And guess what? Dr. Abenga is a friend of mine, greatest scholar on ancient Kemet in the world. He said, he was reading my book, Return to the African Mother Principle of Male and Female Equality. He said, they don't teach us strategy in the university. I said, of course they don't, Abenga. That's power. They only teach it in military academies. And I said, that's kind of dumb, because that's the lowest form of strategy, bloodshed. And so I read the New Collegiate College version of the dictionary, and it didn't define strategy. It just said who used it. And it said basically it's a system used by the military and in business. Yeah. So let me give my hand at that. I would say, first of all, strategy is the ultimate art, next to God and love. Strategy is a thing of great beauty. The fate of nations depend upon whether or not they are pursuing the proper strategy. Whenever you see nations that are strong, their strategy is good. We're going to talk about COVID-19 in a minute, and you're going to see nations that have pursued the right strategy. And guess what? It's not the United States. And guess what? It's not most of Europe either. So strategy is an art that some would say it is the overall direction and tactics of the way, the steps to getting there. But that doesn't describe it. Strategy is like water. It overpowers everything in its way. Good strategy. And strategy on a perfect level is the art of winning without fighting. I've done that many times. When I was young, I did it and couldn't explain how I did it in the most complex circumstances. In others, it was fairly easy. But when I got older, I could actually define the circumstances under which a perfect strategy could be executed, then execute it and sit down and watch my enemy fall without touching them. That is pure pleasure. You hear me? So the question is, what does strategy have to do with right now? This is the second post-Reconstruction. We also suffered in the second post-Reconstruction the loss of jobs, families breaking up, drugs being put in black communities, the assassination of many of our leaders. I call this in the book, The Integration Trap, Generation Gap, caused by a choice between two cultures. I call this a choice between two cultures, an unconscious choice. We'll talk about that at another time. What's interesting about what's happening right now is the generation of the hip-hop generation, this generation, those who have become activists and who have decided to stand up and who have taken the stand against police violence, have taken the stand where they're saying, well, let's restructure this and let's take money out of the police department and put it into social programs. And they got smart enough, and I knew that's where they were headed, to say, and let's take money out of the Defense Department. So we'd have money to create homes for the homeless, jobs for the unemployed, education for people who are being miseducated, and a real healthcare system, because if you had one, people wouldn't be dying like flies. And so what is it about this Black Lives Matter, which is riding the tide of the high tide of history that's so good? Like the 60s, they are pursuing good strategy. In the 60s, black folks came up with tactics and strategies in the South that worked to break up segregation. That was the march, you know. That was Birmingham. That was Selma. That got you civil rights legislation and voting rights legislation. So say what you want about the 60s, it produced victory. And so what is good about Black Lives Matter right now? A, they're demonstrating the strategic power of black folks. When we move, the world moves. 50 states at one point involved in Black Lives Matter demonstration. And a lot of whites, brown, red, and yellow. And some blacks who don't understand their power, they'll say, oh, the whites are taking over. You're leading it. So how's that happening? You understand? And some of them are coming out because COVID has sent them out. Some of them are coming out because they're unemployed. Some of them are coming out because they're mad. They understand they got a madman in the White House. They're angry. And we're giving them a way to fight that makes sense. They're not getting sent to the slaughter. Because one of the things about strategy that's good is, in war, a good strategist always takes the high ground. They get to the high ground first. That's in geography. So that enables you to rain all kinds of firepower on your enemies. That's in war. But in politics, it's taking the high political ground. In politics, it's making the right moves. Strategy's like a dance. It's moves, baby. And I can always tell by people's moves whether they're going in the right direction or the wrong direction. So what was the right moves they did? They did what I'm trying to do with you. They looked at our history. They learned some fundamental lessons. And what were the lessons they learned? Well, the first one was they learned that the march worked for King. So that's something they could use. It worked for the movement. That was something they could use. Bunch of women are at the head of this. Black Lives Matter, some brothers too, but more sisters. And that's right. Black communities broken up. Who's holding families together? It's sisters more than anything else. And so what did they do? They dug deep down into the black political playbook. And they pulled out the strategy of Sister Ella Baker. As the members of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, also known as SNCC, said, no Ella Baker, no SNCC. Now, she had a philosophy and so did the students. And what was it? Leadership shouldn't be singular. She said single leaders have feet of clay. She said we should have group-centered leadership. Well, that's what the students already wanted anyway. Black Lives Matter has improved on that. They call their thing leaderful, just full of leaders. So many that I'm sure it's confusing Homeland Security. So many, I'm sure it's confusing the FBI and the CIA. And by the way, they cloak themselves in nonviolence. See, a lot of us in the 60s, we said, oh, that's handkerchief head. Malcolm X criticized it as cowardly, but he never said it was cowardly for people to peacefully push for independence in Ghana. It was called positive action, inspired by the same person, Gandhi, who, by the way, was a racist. You know, that's a discussion for another time. But the key point is, they cloaked themselves in nonviolence. It was a good strategy because how can you call people who are peaceful terrorists? Smart. And then, this was the real brilliance. They bottled air. That is some words. They come up with some words, and those words were brilliant, and they put their opponents in a trap, and that includes the Donald. What were those words? Black Lives Matter. And guess what? That came from the heart. They were looking at Brother Brown and Ferguson. They were looking at all kinds of brothers and sisters being murdered by the cops. And they were simply from their heart saying, Black Lives Matter. And these are sisters. You understand? And they know This doesn't just mean brothers, it means sisters, but more brothers are dying at the hands of the police than sisters. And these sisters stood up and they put their opponents in a trap, because you say Black Lives Matter, hey, say White Lives Matter, you're finished. Say all lives matter, you're a fool. It took a while to get that sunk in. But by the time of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor's murders, then what happens is you see this thing explode. And it didn't start with Black Lives Matter as an organization, but they were the best organized and their slogans went forward. And a bunch of networks come together. So what I'm saying is, Black Lives Matter have given black people a handle that we didn't have with Obama. We didn't have motion in the ocean. And Obama knew it. And he would often say, I am the change. Everybody else put their foot up, he's behind, except us. The gays did, women did, Latinos did. What did we do? Thanks for Obama. We were saying, we shouldn't do anything because these white people won't let him move. Hey, when you have power, exercise it. Put some pressure on it. So you can criticize Obama. I'm one, I voted for him 2 times, but I'm critical. But at the same time, we bear partial responsibility because we didn't put our foot where they were supposed to go. And so you now have motion in the ocean. You have a movement that's moving and grooving. And the thing is, take advantage of it. That is the basis for black males, young black males who are more likely than any other group not to vote. Not all of you, but enough of you to shift the election. You hear me? You need to understand. Use this time to put your demands on the table. You can't raise a family now in most cases because you're working $12 an hour. So put some demands. I have a faculty person, Dr. Siri McDougal, who we picked to replace me. He's no replacement. He's his own man. He just had a beautiful wedding. It was one of these computerized weddings, beautiful, had me crying. His wife was talking about what a kind man he was and everything else, which is true. And I asked him, well, give me some advice on policy measures that are needed for black youth. And he came up with a whole list of them. He's written a book on black males. And here's the essence of it. Black males and black females are in a position where the jobs they have now are going to be gone, and the jobs they had before are gone. And so automation has taken a lot. Deindustrialization, taking jobs out of the country, has taken a lot. So if you're a black truck driver, like my nephew, Kenneth Bradley, who's a fine young man, he owns his own trucking company, there's going to be a time where that's obsolete. He's smart, he has his own business. So the thing is, one of the proposals that Dr. Siri McDougal came up with is you need to retrain black youth, male and female. And what they need to be retrained in is skills that will pay something. And the key point he makes is this: they must be paid while they're being trained. That's the key point. Because black males and females will have it hard to go to a training program, and at the same time, they got to have money to eat, money to put a roof over their head. So the thing is, black youth, put your demands out there. That's the whole point. Everyone that's political says the same thing, from Angela Davis to Black Lives Matter. They all say, well, Biden ain't my favorite candidate, but the reason we should vote for him is we can pressure him, and that's a fact. You hear me? That's a fact. Why do you think he's got a black running mate? Yeah, you got good reason to criticize her too. But he had to go to the black side because that's the only way he got through the primaries. So the thing is, we got to understand that. We've got power.